Everyone, thank you, Mayor and Melinda and the board members and Jan and Doug and everyone. I'm looking at you all. So thank you all for being here. And I'm going to go ahead and read this message. Thanks, Melinda, for having it on the screen. As chair of the Redevelopment Agency of Murray City, I, Brett Hells, have determined that due to the continued rise of COVID-19 case counts, holding an in-person meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those in attendance. Under those circumstances, Utah Code 52-4-207, parentheses 4, allows for electronic meetings to be held without an anchor location, so long as the public has an opportunity to view the meeting and submit public comments. We are holding today's RDA meeting via video conference, and the meeting is being live streamed at www.murraycitylive.com. That's www.murraycitylive.com. If you have a public comment, now, Melinda, is that same as our citizen comments then? Okay. Public comment or citizen comments, which we'll be doing next, citizen comments, you'll submit your citizen comments to rda@murray.utah.gov. That's rda@murray.utah.gov. All right. Thank you, Melinda, for putting that up. And we'll go ahead and go forward with the meeting of the agenda items. And our first one is to approve our November 17th, 2020 RDA minutes. Are there any questions or comments on those minutes? And if not, we'll ask for a motion.
Brett, I'll make a motion as long as the vote has been changed. So.
And okay, thank you, Diane, and it has, Melinda, correct? Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Thank you, Diane, for bringing that up.
Okay, so I will move approval of November 17, 2020 RDA meeting minutes with the changes that were just mentioned.
Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, all in favor? No, Jennifer, sorry. Jennifer.
Ms. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. House?
Aye. Thank you. Okay, next, we'll go to our citizen comments. And again, you'll send those to rda@murray.utah.gov. Melinda, do we have any citizen comments? Okay, no citizen comments. So we'll move on, close that part. Move on to item number 3, consideration of setting a special meeting for Tuesday, January 5th, 2021 for the, nice to be able to say 2021, for the purpose of electing the RDA chair and vice chair. Presented Melinda Greenwood.
Thank you. At our agenda setting meeting, Chair Hills asked if we would consider the idea of setting a special meeting on January 5th to elect the RDA officers for the chair and the vice chair. So what we would anticipate is it would be a very brief meeting, especially just for the purpose of the nominations and selection of the chair and the vice chair, and then 5-minute thing, and then they would be in place for the regular meeting scheduled on the 19th of January.
Melinda, do we need a vote on that, or just everyone to know if there's no objection?
I don't think we need to have a vote or anything. We can just schedule the special meeting, but just wanted to make sure everyone was okay with that. And discussing it today gives the public another opportunity to know that we'll have a meeting set outside those regular meeting dates.
Do we have any objection to that?
So the meeting time will be determined based on the start time for the committee of the whole, and we'll just, like I said, we'll just have a real brief thing. I think we can even just leave the minute approval for the meeting on the 19th, and we'll just have that one agenda item.
Okay. Thank you, Melinda. Item number 4, discussion of on setting a workshop agenda for January 19th, 2021 RDA meeting. Melinda.
Thank you. So again, at our agenda setting meeting earlier this month with the chair and the vice chair, they requested or suggested that we dedicate some time at our meeting on the 19th to have some discussion on essentially whatever the board would like to see, but to really provide an opportunity to give some more insight into the process that we see coming forward with the negotiations with Edlin and the process that will go through with the MCCD, DRC, and the Planning Commission. And so we thought we would just have a brief discussion item for the rest of the board to see if there's anything that they would like to have presented or discussed at that meeting on the 19th. It may change, but at this time, I don't anticipate we would have other business items to discuss. So, I think we could just set apart 45 minutes or an hour, or however much time the board would like to have to just have more of a free-flowing workshop type discussion, question and answer.
Any questions for Melinda on that?
No, I just have a comment. I think that's a great idea, so I'm really glad we're going to do that.
Excellent. And we really want to make this for you. So if there's any topics or items, you would like to have us address, I don't know if you want to maybe throw them out there right now, or we have a few weeks so you can think about it and let me know. Like I said, we thought we would just kind of walk through the anticipated process and what that looks like. There were some questions at the meeting last month when Edlin presented about parking, and so I already have a note down to go over some of the parking requirements and just give an overview of that. So if there's anything else in particular you'd like to have discussed, we're happy to bring that forward for you at that meeting.
So we can send suggestions to you through an email, Melinda?
Yeah.
Great. Any other discussion on that? Okay, thank you, Melinda. Agenda number 5, item number 5, presentation of the 2020 RDA annual report, Melinda.
Okay. Let me see if I can get this to share correctly. Okay, are you seeing the slide? Or just my desktop?
Your desk, I don't know, this says Redevelopment Agency of Murray City.
Okay,
Yeah, we're seeing the slide.
Oh, you were?
We were.
Yes.
Okay, all right, great.
There's a really nice slide. I wonder who made it.
They may have helped me today. Okay, back to the slide. All right, so let's see, now it's not advancing. Why do I always have this problem? Okay, I'm gonna do it the less ideal way. Sorry. I have 3 screens and I think it might just be too confusing for all of this to have 3 screens. So, all right. We wanted to take the opportunity to present to you some of the information, the key information that was included in the annual report. that was submitted to all of our taxing entities on the 28th of October. The current state law requires that the RDA file a report with the taxing entity committees, and it's due on November 1st of each year. So for Murray RDA, those taxing entities include Salt Lake County, Murray City School District, Murray City, South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District, Central Utah Water Conservancy District, Jordan Valley Water District, and Cottonwood Improvement District. So these are the taxing entities that participate with us when we set up a project area. And so we have to account to them annually what we have done with the tax increment that we have received through those project areas that have been set up. Murray City RDA has 6 redevelopment areas. We really only have 2 that are active, essentially. I suppose we could say 3, but we have the Central Business District and Cherry Street, East Vine Street. We have the Smelter Site Overlay District, Fireclay, and the Ore Sampling Mill. So we'll go through each of these in just a little bit of detail. But the Cherry Street and the East Vine project areas are set to expire in 3 years, I believe, and we don't really have any active projects in those. Same with the Ore Sampling Mill, we haven't triggered that project area yet. And so when we're discussing the RDA generally, we're talking the 3 areas of Fireclay, the Central Business District, and then the smelter site. So the Central Business District is the one that kind of goes right through the middle core of the city. That's where you'll often hear us referring to the MCCD, the Murray City Center Zoning District, is included within the Central Business District. The hashed marks here you see is kind of an oddity. The Central Business District was originally created in, I'm going to go forward to this year, but to 1979. It was triggered in 1983, and it was initially set to expire after 32 years. I think it was in 2011, the RDA went through the process to extend the project area. And then I think it was 2017, going back to this map, that the RDA extended the collection or the boundaries of the project area, but did not extend the collection area boundaries. So essentially what that means is the hashed area is where those tax increment revenues are collected, but you can spend any of those monies within the entire project area. So just kind of an oddity with the Central Business District. And then this district is set to expire in 2034. The Cherry Street District, again, that's right over behind us over here in Public Works, our building over here. And Cherry Street was established in 1991. It was triggered in 2009. The project area was set for 15 years. And as I mentioned earlier, this is one of our 2 project areas that expires in 3 years in 2023. So starting 2024, we'll only have 4 active RDA project areas. The taxable value of the project area has grown since we established that project area in 91. It's grown a total of 921%. And this is exactly what we want to see when we set up a project area. We look at an area within the city and it's it has issues with maybe dilapidation and blight, or it may have contamination. That's a big thing in Murray. The Cherry Street and Vine Street were set up to bring infrastructure there that did not exist. And so the whole purpose of setting up a project area is to get reinvestment into that area and hopefully have that the RDA puts in, have that project area, have the taxable values appreciate faster than you would another area that's just kind of left on its own. So the project area over the past year has increased 6.8%. And the valuation was, so in 2018, it would have been, the valuation was just over $12,114,492, and that grew to $12,942,653. Last year, the agency received almost $90,000 in TIF increment from this project area. So again, East Vine Street up on the east side of the city, the small project area, it was established in '92. Again, it was triggered in 2009. The project timeframe was for 20 years. And I guess this one expires in 2028, not 2023. So again, going back to taking a long-term look at that history of the project area, the value of that area has grown 431% since 1982. The project area value grew 17% over the last year. And then last year, the RDA received $53,149 in revenue from this project area. The smelter site is the project here. We have IMC and Costco, and we have the UTA Murray Central Station here. So this is the one that neighbors the Central Business District. This was established in 1999. It was initially triggered in 2009. And it's a project time frame of 15 years. So this is the other one that expires in 2023. The taxable value of the project area since '99 has also grown exponentially, 462%. So you can see in '99, the value of the property was just over $20 million, and now we're at $114 million. So in the last 21 years, it's increased in property valuation by nearly $100 million. The project area actually decreased over the last year, which is an oddity, but some of that could have to do with the fact that a lot of the area over there is utilized for, it's exempt from property taxes because of the IMC. And then we received last year in the agency TIF funds, we received $959,479 in revenues. Moving on to the Fireclay area. Fireclay was established in 2009. Fireclay is also the only project area that we have active development and participation agreements in. And so that is the only area that we're actually making TIF payments. The increment was finally triggered in 2014, and the time frame for this project area is also 20 years, and it expires in 2033. Since the project area began in 2005, the taxable value of the area has grown 563%. And you can see here, that's a total increase of over 128 million in the last 15 years. And year over from 2018 to 2019, the project area grew 21.6% in valuation. I think in general, the city overall, the valuation increases, I think about 8%. So this shows that the Fireclay area value is appreciating much faster than the rest of the city. And last year we received 1.3 million in revenues. However, most of those revenues were paid out to the various Hamlet. So again, the project area was triggered in 2014. So the first year we made payments was 2015. And so for the last 5 years total, Hamlet Development has received $553,657 worth of the TIF payments. Wells Fargo received the payments as noted here from 2015 to 19. Effective 2020, the Wells Fargo payment now also is being made to Hamlet. So you can see here, the amounts actually were split between these two 50-50, but Wells Fargo now goes to Hamlet. So the amount shown for Wells Fargo here has been eliminated, and it's reflected here in the payment that we made to Hamlet this year. Harley's Partners has also received their TIF increment payments over the life of the project so far, nearly $400,000. Fireclay Investment Partners, which was the original owner of the development there over on the west side of the project area. Their first payment was in 2000, I think that's actually 2017. And then Murray TOD purchased Fireclay Investment Partners out. And now that development has been purchased again. So you'll see going forward that those payments will be made instead of to Fireclay Investment or Murray TOD, those payments will be made to Sriya Avita LLC, who currently owns the project. So I thought this was important to note just because over the last 5 years since we've been making all of these TIF payments, we have reimbursed the developers over there in the project area for over $2.7 million. And the development and participation agreements were initially put in place, and the TIF agreements were allowed the reimbursement for soil contamination and for the utilities to be extended over there, and also infrastructure. So we have the ore sampling mill, and this is our newest project area. It was established in 2018. We have not triggered the ore sampling mill area yet. I would anticipate, based on the project with Bart Warner and his group for the Jesse Knight Legacy Center, that we'll probably trigger that. My guess would be 2023. So that's what we have listed here. And if things change, then it may be triggered a year later. Projects take a little while longer, but the project area is also a 20-year time frame. And so if we triggered that project area in 2023, it would expire in 2042. So if there's any questions about that, I would be happy to answer the questions. I think the most important thing for the RDA board to know is just that we completed the report. It complies with all of the state statutes that requires us to submit them, or it requires the information to be included in the report, and we have submitted them to all of the taxing entities. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to try and address them.
Awesome. Thank you, Melinda. Any questions for Melinda on that? Thank you, Melinda. A lot of numbers. You know, when I was watching that, honestly, I was looking at that and I was thinking, I bet you these board members 29 years ago were going, that's never going to be here. The year 2020. Here we are, 2020.
Well,
We're all going to, what's that?
it's interesting to know that when the project area for the Central Business District, which is where the 48th and State Street is going, I'm going to date myself here a little bit, but I was 4 when that project area was established, and I was 8 when it was triggered. So, you know, I mean, I certainly, as an 8-year-old, I thought I was, you know, looking back that many years later, knowing that this is what I'm doing, you know, it's interesting that who would have contemplated who would be involved, and that it would take as long as that has been, that we've extended the project area another, 20 years. And so it's definitely an exciting time. It'll be fun next year to update the annual report and include a lot of the progress that we'll have made this year on the Central Business District.
Awesome. Dale was on his mission back then, so.
I was 7.
I was waiting for him to say something like that. All right. So no question. Thank you so much, Melinda. Okay. Now we'll go on to our public hearing. We only have one this meeting. Item number 6, public hearing for consideration of approving a resolution of the Redevelopment Agency of Murray City amending the budget for the fiscal year 2020 through 2021, ratifying an expenditure related to the relocation of a telecommunications tower, communications tower, and reimbursement of 4250 South Road construction costs. You know, I'm kidding about the tower. Okay. Diane hasn't heard of the tower before. She wanted to hear more about it.
Okay, so we have essentially 2 items here that were in last year's fiscal budget, and the timing of those items were a moving target. So by the time we went through the process of, creating this current year's budget, sending out public hearing notices for all those budgets, we just weren't sure when these expenditures would take place. And specifically with the tower, the RDA board approved this agreement a year ago in November of 19. And really starting in January, February of this year, we felt like we were just on the cusp of having that agreement signed and fully executed. And unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, it's just taken much longer than we had anticipated. Part of the agreement stated that we would not fully execute the document until the other parties had signed agreements with American Tower. So even though our agreement, the RDA's agreement for the tower relocation is a 2-party agreement between the RDA and American Tower, it's really in essence a 4-way agreement, because the American Tower Company has agreements that they have had to execute with both Verizon and T-Mobile. And American Tower wasn't willing to provide the signatures and execute their documents until they had fully executed lease agreements with both parties to move from the current tower to the new tower. So we essentially have been placed in this, horrible waiting game for the last 10 months of really not being able to contact or influence the other 2 parties to get them to sign, so that American Tower would finally sign the agreement we have with them. So we, and that just impacted a a lot of other things. But essentially, we were held hostage. Our agreement was kind of held hostage while we waited for American Tower to iron everything out with Verizon and with T-Mobile. And it's just interesting because I think about, government, the RDA, we oftentimes get a bad reputation for having a lot of bureaucracy and red tape. And I think that in this case, we were the ones that had very little of that. And it was the other three parties that have really created a challenge with the final execution of this. And so going back to earlier this year, when we had anticipated, this was in last year's fiscal year budget, we had anticipated that any moment the documents would be executed and that we would be able to close on the property and have the expenditure. It just never happened. And so we determined through the budget process that since the date was so unknown and up in the air, to just do a budget amendment to carry the funds forward once we knew when the funds would be expended. Because even when we had the the RDA approved the budget back in June, we still were being told like any day now, these signatures could come through and we could have closed on it, June 30th and still been okay. So that's essentially the challenge that we've had with the tower relocation. And that amount was for $720,000. And then the other item that we have included in the RDA or in the budget amendment is the $200,000 for the funds that were withheld from originally Fireclay Investment Partners and then Murray TOD and now Sria Avita, to help mitigate some of the parking issues that exist over in the Fireclay area. And I think one of the things that we'll talk about next month in our meeting, I want to give you some more insight into some of the challenges that the Fireclay area has had with parking and that. But the issue originated with Fireclay Investment Partners. And so Tim had worked on trying to figure out any possible way that they could improve some of the parking issues over there in Fireclay. So prior to me coming here, the RDA withheld $200,000 of a TIF payment that should have gone to Fireclay Investment Partners with the intent of using that to help remediate parking. And through the purchase of and sale of the property subsequently, we now have finally gotten to a place where, and I think it was the best outcome we could have possibly had, but the funds now, instead of being used to pay for, the plan was to extend road 4250 South through the Fireclay area over there between 140 West and 150 West and use on-street parking to augment the deficiency in parking. And luckily for us, the individuals that owned the property that used to have the address of 106 West Fireclay were willing to subdivide that property, sell a portion of that to Sria Avita, who will now build a parking lot that road is completed, and we'll get about 50 parking spots additional over there versus about 20 that we were looking at with just on-street parking. So a long explanation, but in 2017, that $200,000 was withheld from the TIF reimbursement payment that we should have made to Fireclay Investment Partners. And earlier this year, the city entered into a contract with Sria Avita to construct the road and completed that. They worked over the summer. They completed that construction. And so now we need to transfer that $200,000 of the RDA budget over to the general fund to the city so that they can reimburse the Public Works Streets Division for constructing the road over there. So those are the two items included in that. So total, we have a budget amendment request for $900,720, which is the $200,000 for the road extension, and then the $720,000 for the tower relocation.
Did someone say Brett? I thought I heard someone say Brett. Melinda, let me ask you, and I'll turn it over to the board in a minute, but and maybe someone else has this question, but the $200,000 on the TIF from 2017, so we won't have to pay that then.
Correct. Essentially,
I know what we're doing with it, but I mean, we're not going to have to go back to Fireclay ever because they didn't follow through.
well, right. Yeah, Fireclay Investment Partner is no longer privy to those $200,000.
Yes.
And essentially what Fireclay Investment Partners initially agreed to, and then subsequent now Shreya Evita, us to hold on to those funds. Now, ultimately, what's the end is paying for that road construction.
Okay.
And they're going to pay out of their own pocket to construct their parking lot.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Council or board members, we'll open it up to you. For questions for Melinda.
I'll just say thank you for going through the journey of the relocation of the tower. Because I think it was, at least for me, easy to get lost along the way sometimes with the delays and moving it from one budget to the other. So thanks for taking the time to explain that and the history of Fireclay parking. So that was really informative and helpful. Thank you.
Brett, I have a question also.
You bet.
What I'm wondering, Melinda, is when are we finally going to be able to move that tower? Do you have a time frame yet or a date?
Yeah, I wanted to provide that in the project updates as well. We're still hurry up and waiting on that. The last word I heard was that we will, that they hope to pull the building permit any day now and perhaps break ground even end of this year, beginning of next year. I still am holding my breath to that because there's more complicating factors with that. And T-Mobile has not signed the lease to go over to the new tower. They're still sorting through that. Verizon has signed the lease, and we did essentially convince them, American Tower, to move forward with a project of moving the cell phone tower without waiting for T-Mobile to sign the lease. So their preference was to say, we're not going to even start on this project now until T-Mobile has signed the lease agreement for the new tower. But since they have Verizon, they have some assurance that they'll have one party on that tower. So they have agreed to move forward based on just having the single lease versus having both of them. So, we've been told for the last 4 weeks that we should get a construction schedule from them by the end of the week. So, I would hope that really would be coming shortly. And the last update, they did say that they hope to break ground by the end of the year, but it's nearly the middle of December now, and with holidays coming, my guess is that may unfortunately start in January versus the middle of the holidays.
Thank you. And I will open this up for public comment in just a second, but go ahead. Any other? And so So that's good news for me because I was thinking it was going to be maybe even further down the road, but it looks like January.
I think that's realistic. We made sure that we did everything in our power to be ready to go with this project as soon as we could. So the plan reviews have been completed for quite a while. The building permit has been ready to be issued since I think the beginning of November. And, so we really are, I know they've been working with the contractor here locally to get a construction schedule. I think worst case scenario, I mean, the agreement allows them to take up to 6 months to relocate the tower. The basic construction process takes between 8 to 12 weeks. So whether depending, like I hope they start in January, things go smoothly, it's completed in March. I think that's a realistic time frame.
Diane, did that answer your question then?
Yeah, kind of. But then it's what you know. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just really frustrating. I wish they understood what they're holding up. I don't think they care. So, anyway.
Yeah, because from what I understand, it's in the hands of American Tower how quickly they react. And did Verizon just sign then? Verizon finally they agreed.
Yeah, Verizon, we got the Verizon signatures, or American Tower got the Verizon signatures, I think, in the middle of November. And Turner, I couldn't agree more with you about this being an incredibly aggravating and frustrating project. I've been in continual contact with the project manager back east on this and expressed along the way the difficult position that we've been in, even most recently going to him and saying, look, this is really starting to create some very negative impacts for the city and the RDA. And so again, they at least agreed to continue forward with relocating the tower based on having just the one single agreement signed with Verizon, instead of waiting for the second agreement to be signed with T-Mobile. So my goal over the next 3 months is to make sure that T-Mobile, to help them understand to the extent that I can with the limited influence that we have, that we need T-Mobile to sign that agreement and move over to the new tower, because there's a potential that the project could still be delayed even if the new tower is constructed and T-Mobile hasn't signed a lease agreement to move from the old tower to the new tower. That's a worst case scenario, but I think we should be prepared to at least acknowledge that is a possibility. So I'm still, even though, we're ready to issue on the building permit, I'm still going to keep in regular contact with our folks with American Tower and just hope that we can get T-Mobile and American Tower to come to that final agreement so there's no other barriers left in place.
Okay, other questions for Melinda before we go to the public comments? Okay, thank you. We'll open this up thank you, Melinda. We'll open this up for public comments regarding this hearing. Do we have any public comments? You're on mute. Oh, there you go.
I don't see any.
Okay, so no public comments. And then Jay, you're shaking your head no. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. We'll bring it back to the council for consideration, discussion and consideration for this public hearing. no discussion, I'd ask for a motion.
Brett, I'll make a motion that we amend the budget as outlined.
I'll second.
Jennifer?
Ms. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez,
Aye.
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. House.
Aye. All righty, thank you. And again, we know it's frustrating because, the longer it just puts us back financially. And like you said, we could have to do something to make it more of a situation where we had to move on, and then it's going to cost us more money too. So anyway, okay. Project updates, Wanda.
All right, there was 3 or 4 things I wanted to update the board on. I really don't have an update from the ore sampling mill from last month, but just to remind the board, they did have an initial meeting with DEQ to go over the documentation, the sampling, and all of the information that they have gathered at that site so far, and then to determine where they need to go next. So I would anticipate that they probably won't start any construction or do anything over there now until the springtime. Some good news going back through the Brownfields Coalition grant, or grant coalition that Murray City has with the county and with Salt Lake City. We had a little bit of excess funds left over, and so I have asked them to use those funds to proceed with doing a cost analysis on some soil remediation and to take additional samples for our property at 4800 South State Street. So we've already completed a phase 1 and a phase 2 on that project or property through the Brownstone Coalition. And so we'll be able to take that to the final steps where they do additional sampling and create a cost analysis. There was some, in the past, I think there's been a fueling station over there and a dry cleaner. So it's not a lot of soil contamination, but there'll be some minimal cleanup. So we'll be able to use that information in our discussions with Eadlin Company. I did have a phone call last week with Jill Sherman of Eadlin Company, and our goal is to finalize the dates that we had set out in the exclusive negotiation agreement the board approved last month, and then start working on each of those project number or the items on the project list. So good news that the phase 1 is one of those listed is to complete those environmental studies. So we'll be able to get progress on that. But as soon as we have those dates filled out from Eadlin Company, we'll be able to execute the mayor's signature on that, and we'll get a copy of that agreement to the RDA board after those dates are filled in. And then just going on to talk about some special legislation that was passed this summer. Just want the board to be aware that there was a provision the legislature passed to extend project areas for 2 additional years, up to 2 additional years, if there have been any impact from the COVID-19 pandemic to any of our projects. So that is on our radar. We'll be discussing that. We do have until December 31st of 2021 to determine whether or not any of our situations, and essentially this would really only be for the probably Fireclay or the Central Business District. So if there's a situation that arises that we can come to understand a project was delayed because of COVID-19, then we would have this option to extend the project area an additional 2 years. So we'll be evaluating that over the course of the next 10 months. And if we can determine that it's appropriate to do that, then we'll be bringing a resolution to the board. Otherwise, I mean, at this point, it doesn't look like we really have anything that directly fits those circumstances, but that may be something that comes to light over the next year as we continue to understand the impacts of the pandemic. That's really all I had for you, unless the board members have any questions for me.
Before you, any questions? I just want to make sure in the back of my head that I made sure that I said the motion carries and that the public hearing was approved. So I don't think I said that, but that was going through my head as one I was speaking. So anyway, Mayor, anything?
No, I don't have anything to add. Thanks, Brett.
Okay. All righty. Well, thanks, Melinda, and thanks, board members. And there's nothing else. We're adjourned.